Good evening, good evening, good evening to you, you, and you. Thank you so much for joining us here at 30 Single and Saved. Of course, you know I am your host and ministry leader, Minister Lauren Monet, and I am so glad to be before you all yet again. It is a blessing. It's a true blessing as to all the things that God has been doing with this ministry. So we want to first give reference unto our God, who is the head of our life, and also we want to say good evening to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind you guys before we go ahead and get started that we here at 30 Single and Save, the way that you can support our ministry is by sharing. All right. So if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit that share button for us. All right. And also give us a thumbs up, give us some hearts, and share this on out. Share it on out to your churches, your ministries, your singles ministries, your marriage ministries, wherever you think that it might be helpful. And then also, I want to remind you guys that we are live on YouTube. All right. So go on over and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay. We have an awesome live lined up for you guys tonight. So I appreciate you all for joining us. And as you come in, remember to tell me good evening, speak, and make sure you let me know that you're watching. um, and also do your due diligence and go ahead and hit that share button for us if you're watching on Facebook. All right. So this evening we have an awesome live lined up for you, and tonight we are talking about the truth about independence. All right, we're going to talk about the truth about independence, and what all that entails, especially being single in a relationship, or if you're married. Independence can be something that each and every person may particularly struggle with, because we are taught from birth, how to be independent, how to stand on our own 2 feet, how to operate without the assistance of anyone else. And it's so important to be independent. Don't get me wrong. It is so great to have independence and to know who you are and whose you are. You guys know, us as believers, we have to put that together, right? Knowing who you are and whose you are. But also it's so important to be able to stand on your own and know who you are. All right. And also, it's society's norm now, for independence to be something that is looked upon as you standing alone and always alone. You don't need anyone. You don't need anything. All you need is you. All right. And so that's good and that's great for a certain point in time. But sometimes you're going to need someone. All right. And it's so important. And I know that we don't like to need anyone. We don't like to be in a position where we may have to call out for someone or need someone. But let me tell you something. I almost, I kind of flirted with the idea of entitling this particular live the trick of independence, because sometimes we can trick ourselves into being too independent. And I know you guys are saying, is there a such thing as being too independent? Yes, there is. And so we're going to talk about that on tonight, what it means to be too independent and why it is not something that is a positive thing. All right. And it's so great to be independent. Don't get me wrong. So one of the struggles with, or one of the cons to being too independent, I would say, is that people think that you don't need them, or anyone. And so this can be a problem because sometimes God has placed people in your life to help you, to give you certain information, certain to open up your thoughts, your to different things that you may have not thought about. And maybe God has placed somebody in your life to bless you for a season. And if you don't need anyone, or people think that you don't need them, then that particular purpose could won't be fulfilled within your life. And so you can find yourself not really actually pushing people away that you really need. Now there's this thing that I've seen time and time again with the people that have contacted me, that are in relationships, the ones that I have talked to about relationships or potential relationships. And there's this thing there where they don't need anyone. They provide everything that they need. And some people even go along with the idea of themselves as being independent in the way of, well, maybe marriage is just not for me because honestly, I don't need anyone. And at that point in time, I would say that it's between you and God, but I would say that there would need to be some personal work done there, because if you feel like marriage is not for you and you know that God ordained marriage, then it's that point where I think that you're living in this dream world. And don't get me wrong, I can talk about it because I was there at one point in time where I felt as though no one can come into my life and add to what it is that I have already accomplished in my life. And there being, why do I need anyone there? Right. And sometimes I think as singles, we can get to that point of thinking that we don't need anyone, or placing ourselves into this dream world where we don't need anyone. And I think that it's more of a defense mechanism against being hurt by anyone else, right? If you've ever been hurt in a relationship, then you know that that hurt, it takes a while for that to heal. It's a process to get through. And so I think that a lot of times what singles do is they push themselves into their careers, they push themselves into ministry, or whatever it is that can keep their attention and keep them going, rather than facing the fact that they need to, number one, change, and they need to heal as well. All right. Well, heal and then change, of course. And so sometimes we as singles can be the problem. If your issue is saying that, well, I'll never get married, knowing that God has already ordained marriage, and knowing that he has someone for you, then if you're speaking those words, first and foremost, let's look at this point. You're speaking things into the atmosphere. And when you speak things into the atmosphere, those things that you speak, we all know what the word of God says about the tongue. The tongue is powerful. And those things that you speak can really come to fruition if you speak those things and believe them. And so one of the other negativities about speaking things that you don't necessarily deem to be true or that you believe is the fact that the enemy can hear what it is that you're speaking. And when he hears the negativity, you may not even mean any harm by saying the negative words that you've said, or actually giving words or giving a voice to the negative thoughts that you've had. You may not mean anything by that, but you have to understand, when you put that out and the enemy hears that, he knows how to grasp those words and start working negatively in your life. And so what you don't want to do is ever speak negatively on something that you have placed before God. If you've laid it at his feet, if you know that you're praying diligently for a spouse, if you know that God has ordained marriage, and you know that that's something that you desire and you've been asking God for, you've been praying for it, then know that God is faithful to his word, and know that in the word of God, it says, if you seek, you shall find, you knock, the door shall be open. If you believe the word of God, then you know that whatever it is that you ask in his name, he's going to grant it to you. But understand that it's only in God's perfect timing. So we have to get out of the idea that I asked God for this, and now that he hasn't delivered when I thought that he was going to deliver, he hasn't sent my spouse when I thought he was going to send my spouse, and now I'm just done with it. I don't want to get married whatsoever. It's really a physical, it's a fleshly defense mechanism against being disappointed in what it is that's happening, or how your life is playing out, or how things are progressing in your life, which is nothing that God works in. God works in our faith. Now, God can use us according to our faith, right? And so, according to our faith, we put things into action. We're able to speak things and they come to pass. Why? Because we speak them in faith, knowing that we can't do them ourselves, but we depend on God to do those things for us. And if you're speaking one thing, but in acting in another way, then you're actually still denouncing everything that you have prayed to God for. And I didn't know that this was going to go in this direction, but I'm glad that it did, because this is so important to understand. So let's not act like we don't need people or need anyone, because the very person that has come to, that may have come to help you or was sent by God to help you, could be your spouse, could be a friend that will introduce you to your spouse, could be someone who knows someone who knows someone who God is trying to get you in connection with in order to progress you into the next stages of your life and your relationship with him and your relationship with your future spouse. So we don't want to act like we don't need anyone. So that's the bad aspect about being too independent. Now, some, like I said, have denounced the thought of marriage. And I think, like I said before, I think that this is more of a defense mechanism because they don't want to be hurt anymore. And at that point in time, that's not a good enough excuse for you to denounce marriage. God, like I said before, God has ordained marriage with the right person. And a lot of times we get with the wrong person, we get hurt in that relationship, and then we want to just push everything else to the side and denounce everything else that God has said in his word. He is faithful to his word. But if you make your own decisions to get with someone that God didn't place in your path in the first place, then you have to know that that hurt, yes, now you have to heal from it. But also know that God did not cause that hurt and pain on you. You did that on your own by entering into a relationship that he didn't ordain. So it's important to understand how all of this works. Another thing is you end up feeling depressed because no one gives you the support that you need. Now, this can even happen in the dating phase as well. You might meet someone, but because you come off so independent, they may not support you the way that you need to be supported. This can be with anything in life. So we can actually apply some of these things, and actually most of these things, to other relationships and situations in our lives as it pertains to independence. There are certain types of people that act like they don't need anyone, so much so to the point where they start feeling depressed because they don't have anyone. They're too independent. And when people see that you're too independent, you don't need them, then they're less likely to want to be around you. They're less likely to know that you're in need of them. Just like you would want to feel needed in a relationship or a friendship or any kind of situation, other people want to feel that too. So if you have your guard up with every single person that comes in your life, then yeah, you can end up feeling depressed because you're not being supported in a way that you know that you want to be supported. It's like your actions speak louder than words. Well, your words are not coming out to tell them that you need them. Of course not, right? A lot of us are, have these internal thoughts that we would never even dare to say. So, and then you have your actions, which probably are treating people coldly, not allowing them to know the real you. Now, it's a slippery slope there, allowing people to know the real you, opening up to people, because there are some that only get to know you just to see how they can manipulate you or take advantage of you, especially if you're a person that has a soft heart, who has a kind heart, who is giving, who sees the best in people and don't never sees the worst. Then sometimes you can end up in those situations where people want to take advantage of you. But I'm talking about those people who mean you good, who pray for you, who actually want to see you progress and do better, and mean you all the good in the world. So you can end up feeling depressed on the back end of things because of the way that you have treated people, because no one gives you support. Well, who's going to support you if they don't know that the support that they give is going to be appreciated or even, thought about or acknowledged or anything? It's hard to support someone that doesn't want to be supported. And you could be saying one thing and feeling another type of way. So it's really important to be careful about your particular stance on independence. It's so great to stand on your own 2 feet. It's so great to be able to not need anyone and invite people in your life because you want them there and not so much that you need them. However, understand this: you can turn the key people away in your life if you treat them badly, or if they feel like that they're not needed, if you're too independent. All right, another kind of being too independent, and this is just the truth about independence: you find it hard to ask someone for help. Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. Okay. You find it hard to ask someone for help. This is something that, even I struggle with to this day. So I'm not, leading you all into a discussion where I'm perfect and there is no flaws within me whatsoever. But these are things that I definitely can resonate with. So you find it hard to ask someone for help. For me, I feel as though my independence is linked to me being able to do it all, have it all, be able to accomplish it all, to say that I did it with my own 2 hands, that I was actually able to be successful in whatever it is that I put my mind to. And I don't know about you all, but you all might be the same way. Maybe it's just maybe. But I've learned that there is also a sense of a positive vulnerability in asking for help and actually putting yourself in the place of, you know what, I can't do it all, and realizing that, accepting that, and understanding that it's not a bad thing that you can't do it all. It's not a horrible thing that you can't do it all. And it doesn't mean the end of the world because you can't do it all. But understanding that you make yourself vulnerable positively when you realize that there are people in your corner that can help and will help if you just ask. Now that is easier said than done. I know. For example, during the holidays, I am my dad told me before he passed away. He said, I expect you to carry the holidays. He says you're going to be the one that's cooking. You're going to be the one, And he said not that nobody else can do it. It's just that you're going to be the one to carry out the traditions, the family traditions. And when he said that, I kind of laughed, and he said, I'm serious, and I kind of laughed. But now that he's gone, um I am the one to cook the family holiday dinners and things like that, for the most part. And sometimes there's some help, here and there. But for the most part, these meals, as far as planning them out and trying to make sure that they're executed in a timely manner, that's my job. But I will say my flaw in that would be that a lot of times I don't ask for help. I feel like, my dad gave me this task and gave me this responsibility, and I don't take that lightly. So a lot of times I don't even ask for help. I say, you know what, let me do it. And sometimes I get offers of help, and sometimes I turn them down, and that causes me to be up all night cooking, trying to make sure that everything is prepared, and then being overworked, and not enough rest, right? And so in that, for me, that's something that I can learn. It's to ask for help when I need to. And the same thing with your everyday life. You may find it hard to ask for help, but this is something that will help you in the long run, because like I said before, God has placed people in your life that will help you, that can help you, that he has placed there to help you. But if you don't utilize them, if you never ask for help, if you never come to them and say that this is something that's needed, or if you're pushing them away at every turn when they do ask you, hey, do you need help? And you're pushing them away every single time, then you can't expect somebody to push through all of the no's and the no's and the no's on no's on no's, because you keep saying the same thing. So at some point in time, the person is going to realize, look, they've got it all handled. There's nothing that I'm needed for. Just like you like to feel needed, others like to feel needed in your life as well. All right, so just remember that. Also, let's talk about, you may find it hard to be in a relationship. Now let's link it back to the reason why we're talking about this in the first place: relationship status. Now you might find it hard to be in a relationship because you're too independent. Maybe there's no room for anyone to be of any kind of assistance, to to feel loved by you. Maybe you love yourself way too much to be able to add anyone else to that equation, right? And so you can find it hard to be in a relationship if you're too independent, because at that point in time, you will, let's talk about this. We've talked about respect before here at 30 Single and Saved. So let's talk about the respect factor. Sometimes you can be so independent that when God sends the right one, you can actually push them further away, or you can push them out of your life because you feel like you can do this thing. The smallest bit of the smallest sense of argument or confrontation or anything could potentially blow up, because you feel like, okay, well, if you don't agree with me, then you can just leave this relationship. You can just leave my life. I don't need you. And at that point in time, when someone does not feel needed, they will walk out the door, because that means that you're not the person for them if you don't necessarily need them. All right. And so just understand that this could potentially ruin relationships, that you've had, or even ruin relationships before they even get started. So understand that, you may find it hard to be in a relationship if you're too independent. And if you see that, if you're able to look in the mirror and see that that is something that might be an issue for you, then it's time to change. All right. It's time to ask God for change. I'm always going to tell you to go to God first, but some people need to go to counseling as well. All right. Always go to God first, but some people need to deal with these particular issues in counseling as well, because sometimes it's hard for you to see what your flaws are. It's easy to pick out everybody else's flaws. Just like in Matthew, it talks about seeing the mote in your brother's eye, but you're not seeing the beam that's in your own eye. It's easy for you to see the small thing about someone that you don't like because they're not you. So you're going to nitpick and you're going to pick apart things about someone else, and you might even be at the stage of, well, I don't know if I want to date seriously. And if I am dating seriously, I'm dating to get married, and all of that. So now you're picking apart this particular person who could have been sent by God, but maybe you're ruining it because you're trying to find flaws within that person when you have so many within yourself as well. And you have to understand that every day is a chance to do better and to improve and to keep going. But if you don't take the time to look into the mirror, see the reflection is looking back at you, and pick out those flaws and start asking God to work on those flaws, then you're going to find yourself alone and by yourself. Why? Because someone else is not going to allow you to pick them apart just so that you can feel good about yourself. And see, that's the point that people need to understand, is that especially in relationships, you can pick someone else apart so much so to the point where you forget that you're not perfect. And at that point in time, you become that person who is alone and doesn't need anyone. Hence, here comes the depression. Here comes the thoughts of, I don't understand, and now marriage is not for me. Here comes those thoughts of, well, forget it. I know that what I prayed for and all of that. You can be so prideful to the point that you lose what it is that God has given you because of your pride. So let's not be too independent. Let's not be too prideful. It's good to have pride within yourself to be confident enough to walk this life and do what it is that you have to do confidently and with holy boldness. But it's another thing to let that pride take so much effect on your life to the point where you push everyone else away unless they're trying to beat down the door. And if someone has to beat down the door just to get to you, maybe it's time for you to change. All right. So you may find it hard to be in a relationship because sometimes when you're too independent, like I said before, you act like the other person is collateral damage. So I'm okay if you're here. I'm okay if you're not. Deal with me the way that I am. I'm not willing to change, but you have to change for me. And that's not fair to anyone. All right. So you may find it hard to be in a relationship. Just some, tips, self-reflection. The last thing that I'm going to cover on tonight, and I know I told you guys it wasn't going to be too long. But you assume that most people are like you. And that's not always the case. All right. God has made each and every one of us uniquely. And we all have special parts of us that God has placed within us. My gift is not the same as your gift. Your gift is not the same as the next person's gift, or your coworker's gifts, or your pastor's gift, or your fellow choir members' gifts. God has placed something different and special within each and every one of us. And it's up to us to respect those differences and those special parts of everyone else. So you may assume that people are like you, where they're independent or too independent too, where they, are pushing people away when all you're doing is creating these thoughts, creating these realities, and allowing them to take effect. And that's not real truth. Sometimes we can create these false worlds around us, or these false ideas of people and how they are, when that's not really the truth. Instead of taking time to get to know people, we tend to judge a book by its cover. And it's so important that we do not do that, that we hone in on who we are, so that we know who we are. And then we allow God to work on us, so that we really can see who it is that the other people that are coming into our lives, or that are already currently in our lives, who they really are. If you can't see who you are, if you don't know who you are, it's going to be hard to get to know someone else. And you may find yourself in positions where you're creating these false sense of traits that this person doesn't even possess, just because you have not come to realize who it is that you are, and you're not confident within yourself. So many times you can have these negative connotations toward other people when you're too independent. Being too independent places you in the stead of not really seeing people for who they are, how you can be of assistance. You may even think, well, if you're not adding value to my life the way that I think that you should, then you shouldn't be here. And I come to tell you, it's time for us as believers, as 30 single and savers, as people of God, to come into the realization that we are not perfect. Now, we are not willing to settle for less than what God has for us. That's true. Yes. Don't settle for anything that God has not given you. All right. And it's not settling. Don't settle for anything that God has not blessed you with. Let's just put it like that. But understand that God is going to give you just what you need, when you need it, how you need it, and it's not going to be a question in the matter. All right. So I pray that you enjoyed this live. I pray that you were able to get something. I pray that you're able to utilize something that was said in order to continue your walk with Christ in your single season, maybe in your dating season, in your engaged season, in your marriage season. All right. So I pray that you were blessed on tonight. And just a few reminders this Saturday. Please make sure that you join us at UFC for church school at 10 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube. Also on Sunday morning, we do have morning worship at UFC at 11 a.m. And then we have Kicking It with the Family. If you want to enjoy your favorite family with some laughs and start your week off right, join us on Facebook and YouTube for Kicking It with the Family. And then also, let me remind you, our next live for 30 Single and Saved is March the 13th at 6 p.m. All right, Tuesday, March the 13th at 6 p.m. So join us back here on Facebook and YouTube for 30 Single and Saved. Like I said before, I have enjoyed this live. I pray that you were able to be blessed by something that was said on tonight. And I'm praying that you will consider, if you have not done so, to go ahead and share this live one out. Share it to your churches, share it to your ministries, share it on your personal page. All right, and make sure that you go and subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the the thumbs up button, turn your notifications on so you know that when we are live. All right. And so I'm going to continue praying for you all, and you all continue praying for me. I appreciate each and every one of you all for being a part of the live one tonight. And you can send your prayer requests to the 30 Single and Saved page. And you can also put that in the comment section if you're not too private with it, if you don't want to be too private with it, or you can contact me directly. All right, you guys. So I love you all. I love you with the love of Christ. And I'm going to see you all next time on March the 13th. Y'all be blessed.